Well, it's another month, another notebook done and gone through. This one's completely full. I guess it was technically a sketchbook, though I decided to just fill it up with just various writings. So yeah, very, very fun. I'm in the process, I guess, of completely reorganizing the bookshelves right here. I've gotten, I've kind of filled them all back up completely, just reorganized. I kind of have an attempted system, though it's not the greatest. Like right here is sort of just like my favorite stuff on the one that's right here, not in the frame. It's got just everything interesting. Well, all of my books are interesting, I would say. But yeah, pretty cool so far. I haven't read this one yet. I don't know, I'll just put this right here. Anyway, yeah, just a bunch of reading and all that sort of stuff. I'm still working through Ozzy Osbourne's Lost Rights and Tom O'Neill's Chaos. I did a little review or overview of chapters 4 and 5 of Chaos. I basically just decided to go through and put as much detail as I feel necessary for each chapter. And as the chapters get more dense with information, I feel less a need to, because it's at this point information I don't exactly know. So going through all this sort of analogical thing and writing giant essays on them, it's kind of like it's beyond the point of doing, because I don't know fully what it's talking about. Like I can understand the names and I know them based on just listening, but there's also as much things I don't know. Like chapter 4 goes into the ownership of the Cielo Drive residence, and that perspective, which I hadn't heard before. I didn't even know the name of the guy, and I actually can't think of it off the top of my head. That's how little I know about that part. But it's essentially like who owned it before Terry Melcher, who stayed there, and who was there in between Melcher's residency there and the Tate Polanski takeover of it, up until, of course, Sharon Tate's death at the hands of the family. So it's kind of just like, you know, that sort of thing. And yeah, but since then I've started this on this notebook, which I actually got this 3 years ago now, because I got it in either August or September of 2023. I got it while I was up on the mountain over there on a photography field trip. I remember very succinctly getting it. It was it was an overcast day. It started raining towards the end of the trip. I went to the cookie cabin. I had also been snacking on these 30 milligram THC edibles the entire time. They were gummies. And so as soon as I had the cookie at the cookie cabin, all these edibles I'd been just chewing on in my mouth the whole time just hit, and it was like it was fun to do, especially because I swear my photography teacher must have known I was stoned the majority of that year. I swear. If he didn't, that would be surprising, but you know, he would give me those looks in the mornings and stuff, because I had him as my first class of the day, and I would always get there way before everyone else and just sort of sit there in the room, and that's actually where I read stuff like The Virtue of Selfishness and all that stuff. It was very fun. But I swear, I'm pretty sure he knew I was high the majority of senior year, because he'd give me those looks like, Yeah, I know. And then, actually, it's funny that same year, the Gov Econ teacher I had, because I had a vape in my sleeve, and I just went, and this was back before I wasn't really able to ghost it as well, like I just did now. And so it was kind of like, uh, I'm pretty sure he knew, because he gave me a look like, and it's like, that teacher didn't care though. He was also a football coach. He didn't care. And I also got good grades in that. I got good grades in most every class. It's interesting, especially in his class though. But it's funny because I don't think he actually ever checked the work that was turned in by me, because I would turn anything he gave into a very, like, he'd give the assignment, like it was like write a few paragraphs on something, and I would start out on the point, and that I would go into something completely different. Like, I remember, like, for the last thing, I cited Nietzsche, I cited LaVey, like, I cited Anton LaVey, I cited Ragnar Redbeard, and I cited Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, and I didn't get any throwback on that. That was hilarious. Um, so, if I guess, if you're a senior, and you have nothing else to lose, cite Ted Kaczynski in a class. I don't know. I also never did stupid shit in classes, so teachers loved me. But that's neither here nor there. Because I got this, and I got this on that field trip, and I just started using it now. That I get a lot of notebooks. But I've also been working off this notepad from an Edward Jones thing. So yeah, this is where I wrote my review of the new Spider-Man movie, which I saw on Friday night, in a packed, it was a packed theater. Like, when I saw The Odyssey too, it was also packed, just full of old people. But I saw this. I saw the new Spider-Man, and I thought it was a very good movie. I enjoyed it. I previously, and I still do, quite by and large, have what is seemingly a common sentiment of fatigue in regards to the Marvel cinematic universe, as well as the whole superhero genre in general, just because it became so overdone. Like there was a point where it was like all you could fucking hear about in regards to movies and stuff was just Marvel, 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 and all that was out was Marvel, 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 which is fine. It's just like, you just sort of become numb to it after a point, and like, oh, again. And they did have the spell of below good quality films that they released, like, and that's not to say I didn't enjoy something like Eternals, but it was just like, it's forgettable. Like, it's not worth talking about, and it's not like I find most of them to have all that much substance or things worth talking about. Let me just had to flick my computer so that it stayed lighting me right here. It's not like it had much that... It's not like Marvel or these superhero movies have much depth that I would analyze them like I do other movies, like I did with Avatar or Running Man or the Greg Araki movies. They're spectacles for fun. They might have a bit of like some interesting commentary or insights on things, but not terribly much. Like, but I did thoroughly enjoy the Spider-Man Brand New Day. I thought it had an excellent continuation of Tom Holland's variation on the web slinger that started in 2016 with Captain America Civil War. I do have some gripes with it, namely that, and this doesn't spoil anything, because I think the marketing team did an absolutely wonderful job in keeping secret Sadie Sink's character, who I'm not even going to reveal because that gets rid of part of the mystery and allure of the movie, and what makes it so interesting to watch. I guess, even though it's online already and you can find it pretty easily if you go on Twitter, I've noticed, because that's what my Twitter feed is full of now. That and an argument, that and this argument that I've been in on a thread with this Christian lady, and the Church of Satan is also in that thread, because the Christian lady's going on and on about how the what's it fucking called, the coroner or person who did the autopsy on Charlie Kirk follows the Satanic Temple's Utah congregation on Instagram, as if that really means much, because the Satanic Temple is full of shit. And if you want to know more about that, check out the book that I helped make called The Founding of the Satanic Temple, Their Secrets Revealed. It tells everything. Or just check out the thread where this lady is going on and continuously gets recorrected. It's interesting that Christians consider pride a sin, and then they're too prideful to admit that they've been duped by a prank organization, namely Douglas Masico and Kevin Solling's political stunt group, which just uses left-wing politics to make money for their brand name. Because the Satanic Temple is a tax-exempt brand name for a for-profit parent company called the United Federation of Churches, LLC. Don't believe me? You can look it up. Anyway. You know, but anyway, I quite enjoyed Spider-Man. I do have some gripes with it. As I said, my gripe with Sadie Sink's character is her story seems to give what's already been done, in the sense of it's similar to Yelena's character in Black Widow, the Hawkeye series, and Thunderbolts, which I did see the Thunderbolts twice. I'm not flipping the camera off on purpose, though I can if I want to. So yeah, here you go. But yeah, it was a very fun movie, but I feel like the plot around Sadie Sink's character is something that's just regurgitated a bit. Even if it's very interesting, it ties into a completely different sort of story. It's the same sort of plot. Yeah, that's my only real gripe with the movie. I have some questions about it, but I don't really care. I wrote an article on it. It's on my blog. It's called Spider-Man Brand New Day Review. Shocking. But yeah, I've been doing that, and then I guess in consideration with especially with how I see the discourse around the Spider-Man film online, namely in regards to the lead actors' relationships with one another, namely because Tom Holland and Zendaya are married or whatever. Like, I don't give a fuck. I know very little about it. I'm not into celebrity culture very much, so it's like I just see things and take in the information whether I want to or not, because it's very hard for me not to absorb information if I see it on some level. My mind just doesn't forget things. But it's like, you know, I don't understand this parasocial, I guess, way of going about things. Like, you know, I might be a very big fan of like artists and their work, but I'm not, like, I don't take it to a personal level of connections as if the artist and I know each other, or anything like that. Like, I love, for example, Mindless Self-Indulgence and the artwork created by Jimmy Urine, and all the projects that he's done, and I find him subsequently this very fascinating and intriguing figure. But other than that, I don't give a fuck about him beyond that. Same thing with any artist. And to that end, I also think it's really stupid to say, you know, separate the art from the artist, because how can you separate the art from the mind that it originated from. And it's like, I don't, and at the same time it's like, who cares if it's good art? It's good art, you know. Like, sure, MSI and stuff is juvenile, but it's self-aware at the same time. You know, I like that about it. And you know, I mean, the Picasso is displayed at Dealey Plaza in Chicago. Does it really matter if an artist is like some egregious person? And I'm not saying that Picasso or Jimmy Urine is. That's subjective to interpretation and viewpoint and personal morality, and whether or not things are true or false about them objectively. I wasn't there, I don't know, or care really, because I'm not that obsessed. I just find the art and the mind it comes from intriguing to study, you know, as so many of, as quite a few of these books would go to do exactly that. Like, I have this book, I have this Taschen book here on H.R. Giger. It's actually in 3 different languages, so it's very interesting. But, you know, it's like, I don't care whether someone's a shitty person, whatever that actually means, and their personal life or not. It's like, they might be. I don't care. I still find them and their art intriguing. I guess I do feel like there's a different sort of standard to artists in a way, because just how I understand the creative mind as working. It works in a different way from most normal standards. That's why certain people are called transgressive, you know. And I mean, it's like, if it's not pushing the boundaries of something purposely or just naturally, then it's like, well, what's really going on, you know? This is good coffee that I made. But you know, that's just my view on it. Like, I don't care for the whole good guy badge. I just don't understand the parasociality of fandom. And as like a sister example, given there's married in correlation between the bands, My Chemical Romance, which I love My Chemical Romance. I have, I even have Electric Century on fucking vinyl up here. I have Leathermouth on an exclusive pink vinyl too. I have Living with Ghosts on vinyl, which is the 10-year anniversary of the Black Parade. You know, but you know, like, I like these bands, and I like these artists. Like, I find them invariably fascinating to learn about, but it's like, I don't understand, I guess, this sort of parasociality. Though in regards to something like My Chemical Romance, I can get it on some level, because a band like My Chemical Romance did cultivate a lot of its fan base by being, as they said in Life on the Murder Scene, the tour documentary from their 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge era, that they're a band that, quote, wants to save your life, unquote. Now, that I can understand with the parasociality on some level, because they did cultivate a fan base of, let me flick this again, of people who, they cultivated, I'm trying to say this in a more nice way, but I don't think there is. They cultivated a fan base of people with mental illnesses that have a tendency towards being hyper-obsessive, whether it's real or fictional or not. And the way you can see this as intersecting with some other things is how people get super attached to fictional characters, be it on, especially with like the old days of Tumblr, this was quite apparent, especially with things like the various fandoms for these fictional shows, like namely these shows and book series, like namely Percy Jackson, Supernatural, Sherlock, the BBC version with who the fuck is it that plays Bilbo Baggins in The Hobbit? Him and Benedict Cumberbatch. and yeah, you know, there was a lot of this stuff, that stuff, and it morphs into different ways. And then again with My Chemical Romance, you can see this with all the fan fiction that's been written about it. And I'm not going to deny that some of it is really well written because I've read it. I find it interesting to go through and read this stuff, and like some of these stories are very entertaining, but at the same time, some of them are like, this is just, I get it because of the cultivated fan base, but at the same time, it's like, I think this person should probably seek psychiatric help, you know, but, you know, at the same time, I don't understand the whole idea of crediting a band with saving someone's life, because like a song can mean a lot of things, and that's not incorrect, but what I find is more accurate is that the song acts as a conduit for what's already there in one's own mind. And so it's not the song specifically that saved the person, it's themselves using the song as a tool. So there you go. You know, it's like, you know, you don't hammer, you know, the hammer doesn't put the nail in, you use the hammer to put the nail in. There you go. But that's just my own view, and I guess to bring it back, it's not something that hasn't existed for a while. I mean, trashy tabloids have been around since the beginning of, well, Walmart, grocery aisles or whatever. People brought Sherlock Holmes back because they protested so much that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle decided to revive him, even after him and Moriarty had faced off and both died in their battle of wits, but the public didn't like that, so they protested so much he felt coerced into doing it. But you know, I can't say that I'm not like really into shows or anything. Like I love Supernatural, and I liked the Sherlock series, and I like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. I really liked Peaky Blinders. That was a good show. But it's like I don't understand the hyper obsession with these things. I guess it's probably interconnected with a certain flavor of neurodivergency that I just don't correlate with, because it's like I get it because I can understand it on some level, but I don't understand this as I said, obsession with people and things that you don't ultimately know, or you know, have that's not real, you know. The relationship is not real. And I remember I was going there's a book that I find occasionally at Barnes and Noble called Keanu Reeves is Not in Love with You, and it's about exactly that. It's very interesting. I flipped through it a few times. You know, but yeah. But yeah, I've just been sort of, oh yeah, this is a collage I did a bit ago. I was watching Saving Private Ryan. No, I was watching Hacksaw Ridge while I did this and started Saving Private Ryan. It's basically the first 6 months of this year, so yeah, very interesting, very cool. Thank you, Kanye, very cool. I like Kanye West. But yeah, just a bunch of reorganizing my room, thoughts on Spider-Man, new notebooks, and I walked, because this is just a battery that I've used and reused, I walked about 4 miles tonight to get this. I have to wait during the day because today it got to 108 with the excessive heat warnings, and usually because this is at Arizona, it gets to about 102 at the minimum during the day. It fluctuates between 102 and 108 here during summer, so going out and walking isn't practical, you know, But yeah, in that I've also continued on my hunt for the velociraptors that I found a while ago. Because I saw them during the because I was at I was at the farmers market, and while I was walking back to the car and so I was walking back to the car that I got into, and there was this person on stilts, and suddenly she became some sort of a Terminator thing, and this is a completely true story, by the way. And started going on a rampage, a mechanical massacre. Um, I called it. I call my recollection of it the stilts of slaughter. And when all of a sudden these velociraptors came out of the nearby wash and attacked it, one of the velociraptors, because there were 4 of them, took her down, and then they dragged her off into the ditch again. And so, you know, I've ever since been trying to find them, and, you know, I've talked with my homeless friend Scott about this, and he's never actually seen them personally, but he's heard stories about them. So, you know, I've been going out and about trying to find them, but recently I did find a footprint while I was out walking, so I do definitely know they're out there, and that's besides seeing it with my own eyes. You know, I've seen these velociraptors. I just want to find more so that I can actually get proof this time, rather than just watching as in the car mirror there's a woman on stilts killing people, and then all of a sudden she gets taken down by a pack of velociraptors. Crazy shit, really. But I'll be typing that up and with all the evidence soon. You know, because it's a very interesting adventure. Then I also have some other stuff that I wrote that went up on Patreon, and yeah. But I've been listening to a lot of Nick Cave interviews and stuff, because I just find Nick Cave, his mind, again, here's an artist who has a mind that's invariably fascinating. He's such an interesting figure, you know, and it's just interesting to see how people, especially other creatives' minds work, and compare and contrast it to my own, because I would say I have a more creatively inclined mind. You know, it's just interesting, like, you know, and you know, it's just fucking fascinating. I find his perspective on more spiritual matters interesting. I wrote a whole thing about that yesterday, and that was called spirituality. Spirituality and something, I forget, but I recorded myself reading it, so whatever. But yeah, it's just these figures are invariably fascinating to me. You know, even if it's someone like yeah, Charles Manson would also be included in this, because he's such a fascinating figure, but he was also a creative. Like, he was an artist, he was a musician. He's invariably fascinating regardless of what someone thinks about him. He was very interesting. I'm just gonna leave my computer in sleep mode, whatever. But you know, it's just these figures are just like how their output works and what they did or what they do. I'm just endlessly fascinated, especially with someone like David Bowie or Marilyn Manson. You know, just eternally just interesting how what they can create and what they say and their perspective on things, and how that feeds into what they create. And I have an admiration, obviously, for a lot of these people, though I don't necessarily, I guess, in a way, there's some sort of idolization, though I don't necessarily like the idea of idolization. But at the same time, I was also writing on this too. I don't think I'm going to put that writing anywhere. But I guess I'll read from it a bit because it's more recent. Because I was talking about this the other day with Ozzy Osbourne's last rites, because he humanized, he said something which I found very humanizing, which I prefer to do, rather than turn people into these sort of gods, or something like that. But it's like, you know, I don't necessarily like this sort of creating people into like these larger than life figures, even though they create these characters that are so, but I prefer to see them on like a human level, because they're human. They're just human, you know. They're just as I mentioned then, and as Danny Goldberg said in the book Serving the Servant, which is, I actually have it right here right now, you know, like in regards to Kurt Cobain, like he wasn't this angel or, you know, this deified figure. He was just as fucked up and pissy as anyone else, maybe more so because he was a heroin addict who ate a shotgun with his mouth. But you know, it's like that's such a human thing too, because who doesn't know at least one or two people who have committed suicide, you know? Like the person I saw The Hobbit with when I was 6 years old hung himself. So, you know, it's not crazy, you know, to think that someone would kill themselves. That's a very human thing. It is a very human thing, because humans are really the only species that commit suicide, and that's a fact. Other species might show more depressive and what we would call self-harm regulating behavior, but that's really only in environments where it's controlled, like in a human setting. And in actual nature, no animal commits suicide. That's just an observed fact. Only when they're in confined human controlled conditions, like in a zoo, do they display any sort of like depressive behavior. Believe me, I've researched this. If there's Ego Death, that essay that I wrote, The Last Hominid's Inheritance of Extinction, there's also an essay that I did on that. There's one more. I don't know. Look through my Substack or blog or whatever, or YouTube here, because I have it here too. So I don't know. I've written so much shit. I like, if you look on my blog, it tells you how many things I put on there a month, and that's just out of what I decide to put on there, out of what I write. Like, I think for July I put 22 things on there. I think the month this year with the least amount of stuff put on there was April, but that's just from other factors going on. And even then, what I put there on April was like very dense and heavy-handed in just how much I wrote. I think I misused the term heavy-handed there. I don't really give a fuck. But anyway, so why, I guess, okay, yeah, so why I find the idea of idols sort of interesting or weird is because it seems to sort of, and this is probably not the etymology, this is just my, okay, let's hope this works, because it just stopped because my phone storage decided to fill up there. Let's hope I cleared it. Oh fuck, this is gonna be fun to put together, or figuring out how to, oh wait, I have that account. I could just sign in to that on there, and then easy fixes. But anyway, assertion of the word idol is that it combines the words ideal and model. I'm not a very big fan of idealism, though I understand that it is unavoidable in the grand scheme of human existence. And so it's almost a necessity, but, so yeah, where is it? But yeah, yeah, I can understand why idols are kind of necessary too, because it's like, you can take someone's model or their life and you can compare it to your own and have a sort of idea of where to go, what to do, that you can't ever replicate someone or what they've done. Like, that's why there's this idea of great men like Napoleon, Alexander the Great, obviously, people who change the course of human history in some fundamental way. You know, even Hitler and Mussolini are in that category of great men for that reason. Whether what they did is agreeable or not is ultimately depending on perspective. I'm a moral nihilist. I don't care. You know, I find the history fascinating, and I find what the effects of it are fascinating. I don't care to have a good guy badge over it or a bad guy badge. I look at it objectively of what happened, and, you know, but it's like, it's just invariably fascinating how these figures are, you know, like, you know, just figures are fascinating, and what they do is interesting. You know, you know, you can take someone as a model and then emulate it into your own life and sort of find a direction to go to based on what someone else did in a similar circumstance, or a circumstance that's analogous to your own. You know, it's very interesting how that works, you know. But, you know, I do try to, I do find it more questionable, even though I'm subject to it as well. And throughout this whole thing here that I've been yapping my head off, I've expressed admiration for so many people, you know, Jimmy Urine, David Bowie, the two aforementioned dictators, which I would then also go on to say, you know, people like Che Guevara, Bill Ayers, and Bernardine Dohrn, just movers and shakers that are more creatively and artistically inclined, I would say, because it's actually interesting. Actually, that's neither here nor there. But, you know, it's like, yeah, I find the intelligence and the more creatively inclined minds, whatever that creativity may mean. Like, Napoleon was definitely a creative mind. He was a brilliant strategist, and I find the reductive idea of, you know, he was short, whatever. He was an inch shorter than me. I'm 5'8". So that's not even a valid point. That Ridley Scott film really was fucking terrible. Jesus. You know. But yeah. There's a book on Napoleon I want to read, because I don't actually know all that much about him, but beside like the basic facts. Forget what it's called, but it's a very cohesive autobiography, and I guess I can similarly understand. I can, from what I understand of him, it's analogous to someone like Ulysses S. Grant, or I guess more accurately Robert E. Lee, though these are all brilliant strategists and commanders and generals in their own right. You know, again, great men or great people, whatever. I'll use the term great men. I don't give a fuck about the politically correct phrase, if there is one for this. You know, just humans that have managed to move and shake the course of history in the world, be it in any area of industry. I mean, Jack Parsons was an occultist, and he's the reason we got NASA and jet propulsion and got to the fucking moon. which wouldn't have been possible if Aleister Crowley didn't exist, So, thank Aleister Crowley's lineage for the space programs we have today, It's just interesting. Just, it's impossible to not find it fascinating, But yeah, it's, I don't know what time it is. It's sometime after midnight now. And I've just been sitting here yapping my head off. I was watching, I've been watching this, I've been watching a lot of media analysis, namely in regards to, more criticism of things, because I feel like I tend to like things even when other people don't, so I'm trying to see the perspective on it. Because I can find something interesting in almost everything. Like, I might not love the Star Wars sequels, but I like them in a way because they're interesting in their own right. Like, I wouldn't say they're well done, or fit into the actual story quite well, but on their own, they're very interesting to watch and consider and are at least entertaining in a way. The Rise of Skywalker has its stupidities. Somehow Palpatine returned, though it's not the dumbest thing ever. Like, if you read what used to be considered the extended universe, Palpatine did return in a clone. He returned in quite a few clones. In fact, there was even a point where Luke fell to the dark side and stuff. It's just interesting. It's a shame that Disney decided to retcon all that, but Disney isn't the boss of what Star Wars is or isn't. They just own the IP. They don't own the perspective or interpretation, because there was almost 40 years worth of books and material on this stuff before they took it over. So it's not so simple or black and white or anything. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just sitting here talking to myself on a screen mirror, and apparently I'm yawning even though I'm drinking coffee. I had some Oreos earlier. If I had some, they're in the living room, but Oreos and coffee, just as Anton LaVey intended. But yeah, funny how that always comes up. It's funny how things recur, especially something like oh god, I can't count how much the Process Church recurs in my life. The Process Church of the Final Judgment, which was a split off of Scientology that's very questionable, to say the least, in its own history, because it started out as a thing called compulsions analysis, then it went into a very weird direction that mixed the E-meter with sort of like Gnostic Christianity, and it had sort of 4 different factions, and its total idea was the reconciliation of opposites with Christ and Satan, and all this stuff. It was like Christianity, paganism, Aleister Crowley dashed in their Gnosticism. It was a clusterfuck of weirdness. There's ideas it was a psyop. Maybe it was. What's her name? Rotting Jules on Twitter. On Twitter, she's Dana Duda. Has done some very interesting research into that group as well. But it's just interesting how certain things pop up recurringly. They haven't popped up for quite a bit. Of course, like I'll see, like as I said, Dana Dudaw's posts on Twitter here and there, but it's not like it hasn't popped up in what I'm going through in any way very much. Actually, that's not true, because when I was writing the piece Bacchanalian for one of the chapters of Chaos by Tom O'Neill, which has to do with Charles Manson and the idea that he may or may not, that he may have been a federal psyop or something in some way. While I was writing Bacchanalian, I had to, I was researching Roman Polanski's more questionable personal life, as people view it. And so in that, I watched a video by Turkey Tom on Roman Polanski, and in that he does a whole he has a whole segment on the Process Church, which is very interesting. Because there's an idea that Charles Manson was either a member or associated with them, as Charles Manson had past ties to Scientology, and obviously the Process being coming out of Scientology because the founders, Robert and Marianne de Grimston, Robert, who's still alive, Marianne died in the 2000s, they met and left Scientology to start compulsions analysis. Then obviously people like Timothy Wiley joined, yada yada yada, and now they're known as, and now the Process, it does still exist. It's now it's gone through so many different iterations, at least publicly. Like it started as compulsions analysis, then it went to the Process, then it became the Foundation Faith of the Millennium, then it became Best Friends Animal Society, which is the largest no-kill animal shelter in the US. It's very interesting. So yeah, take that how you will. I'm not going to say anything objective on it, because I don't know the objective on it, because the objective on it is questionable, and up to speculation and interpretation, and where evidence points to is a convoluted clusterfuck with no objective truth in it. Besides, I mean, there's truth in it, obviously, but, you know, it's scattered in a clusterfuck, as I said. But yeah, this is going on almost 40 minutes now, and so I'm just gonna stop, because I've been rambling my fucking head off for almost an hour now. I don't tend to talk that much, and I can feel my voice losing almost, or going out, or flattening, or whatever. Whatever the right verbiage I want to use for my suffering, as Emil Cioran would point out. Even though this isn't suffering, I'm just having a pretty enjoyable time right now. But yeah. I don't know. But yeah. Anyway, auf Wiedersehen.